Right. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. I'm letting people in from the waiting room during my presentation. So if I seem a little distracted, you'll know why. I appreciate everybody coming together with myself and Britt from City of Good. I'm going to do a quick introduction about Fair Idaho so people have some background, and then we'll kind of dive into the meeting. And then so my name's Katie Baker, Executive Director of Fair Idaho. FAIR is an acronym. It stands for Food, Agriculture, Restaurants, and Establishments. We are a nonprofit trade association that was really born out of the pandemic in March of 2020 when a lot of independent food and beverage businesses were struggling. And we decided to structure our nonprofit very differently. I found out as we were building it from any other trade association out there in the United States, because we are structured around the local food system. So a part of our organization are farmers, typically small farmers and ranchers that sell within the state, food and beverage producers. And that could be a craft brewer or salsa maker, independent restaurants, bars, and grocers, and livestock processors. And so we advocate on behalf of our members. We have over 400 members. And then we also connect. So we want to build a more resilient food system. We realize that within the framework of our organization is really uniting those producers and buyers. And so thanks so much for joining us. And real quick, just to make sure, a couple housekeeping, everybody's muted if you could, just so we don't get any background noise. And then also, I'm really hoping today is an open discussion. Yesterday, as I was mentioning, we had our annual meeting and nobody really raised their hand or asked questions. This is an approach as we're approaching this as a team effort. So we need all those voices. We need all those ideas. That's how we're going to get to where we need to get. So, and from here, I'll let Britt introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. Katie, thank you so much for organizing this, and thanks everybody for being here. I apologize. If you know me well, you know I don't sound very healthy. So if I'm coughing, I'll mute myself. So City of Good was born actually at the same time as Fair Idaho. We're really sister organizations in many ways. And we were born from the same great idea that Boise deserves a sustainable food system, but also that we wanted to ensure that our local food producers were supported and that our neighbors experiencing food security had access to fresh and delicious food. So in March of 2020, we started providing what was called a weekend fuel kit. And it was a box of 6 ready-to-eat meals prepared by local restaurants using local products that was delivered to the Boise School District community schools. From then, we have doubled our programming reach every single year since March of 2020. So at this point, we're continuing to provide weekend fuel kits for every child that lives as a guest of Interfaith Sanctuary. We're also providing senior fuel kits to senior caregivers who are facing food insecurity. And we are delivering fresh produce to all the pantries within the Boise School District, Boise State University, Giraffe, Laugh, and several other places. That program has been so exciting. We partner really closely with Global Gardens, hi Ben. And what we've done in the last year, in 2022, we delivered around 7,000 pounds of fresh produce to pantries throughout the community. And last year it was over 40,000. So that program continues to grow. And we want to, we get to next summer, double that even more, we hope, by partnering with farmers and vendors at the Boise Farmers Market, purchasing surplus products directly from them. I could go into great detail, but the reason we're here today is that City of Good both has the great fortune of having received a federal grant to begin the process of building a food hub for the city of Boise. And through that, we've become aware of and open to lots of funding. So before we get any further in building visions and plans and lists of supplies, I wanted to check in with our food producers and farmers to find out, when you imagine a food hub for the city of Boise, what do you need it to do for you? And so where we are in that process is we received $1.5 million from the federal government this fall to build a food hub. And we are right now in the process of ramping up our programs in the model of a food hub. We have a space. It's not a traditional hub space. It's the Shrine Social Club. So we have taken over the commercial kitchen at the Shrine Social Club, and we're using that as a mini food hub. We will use that space to process and distribute produce. We will use that as a space to prepare fresh, ready-to-eat meals using 100% local product. And we're going to run a cafe for all Duck Club events in that building. So there's an earned revenue potential, and that menu will be 100% local. Moving forward, we're partnering with the Idaho Botanical Garden and the Boise Farmers Market to build a more traditional food hub in East Boise on the site of the Idaho Botanical Garden. That space is about 2,000 square feet, so it's not huge, but it is going to be beautiful and amazing. We know we will have walk-in freezer, walk-in cooler, a small kitchen for processing food, and then we will still have our commercial kitchen where we can process food on a bigger scale. And so this is really intended, sorry, I have a kitten crawling up my leg. This conversation is intended for you to tell me what you need and to ask questions about where we are in the process and what has already happened. Katie, did I cover it?
You did good. Thank you so much. So where we are with FAIR is, you know, my background, I'll give a quick minute to that. So I worked and volunteered at Idaho's Bounty for about 8 years. And so that was a food cooperative that was started by farmers, well-intended, but it unfortunately didn't make it, right? So we just struggled. Trucks were breaking down. We ran out of money. And so it was really unfortunate. And so the thought is, like, how can we really think we have to start somewhere? And we're really blessed to be able to work with City of Good and others to really think through some of these issues that are facing our farmers. But when I stepped into this role, and now that our membership is growing, everybody is saying, look, we need help with ease of ordering, aggregation, distribution, marketing sometimes. But distribution is something I hear nonstop from our members, just from walking around the farmers market. Basically, producers just want to be able to be on their property, their land, and do what they do best. And so looking to the past with Idaho's Bounty, and unfortunately that didn't make it. How can we move forward in a really smart and thoughtful way? And I think we have an opportunity to start small and grow larger. And so that's just some of the challenges that are facing small producers. And then Britt, if you don't mind kind of talking about what we did this summer, the RFSI grant, and what you're thinking with that, that would be great.
So I mentioned we got this wonderful grant. It's an ARPA fund. It was a Relief Act fund, but there's another big chunk of money that's become available. And as we look to applying for it, we want to do that in deep collaboration with our food producers and with our existing partners out at the hub. And so this, if you haven't read about it, there are 2 rural food system infrastructure grants available for us here in Idaho. And they're due on March 15th, so they don't give you a lot of time, but one is for between $10,000 and $100,000 to buy equipment, and one is for $100,000 to $3 million to build infrastructure. And we're imagining we are going to apply for the larger up to $3 million for a food hub. And so again, what I want to know is, how do we represent your needs and goals, and how can we collaborate? I think everybody should apply. You know, we should all apply for what we need, but if City of Good can help facilitate a big picture collaborative effort, that's what we're thinking of. And Katie, with this summer, are you talking about the regional food business work that we've done, or the
Yeah, just the meetings that we had, kind of the meeting of the minds, and what insights we gleaned from those meetings.
Well, I think you kind of I mean, the insights that we've gained is that, you know, the needs in our community as far as food distribution are kind of, we hear them from every corner, that some of the big needs are storage, distribution. I would also say capacity. All of us are working at max capacity, so the more that we can reduce redundancies and share things, probably the faster we can make it all happen. I think good news is that there are resources available for us right now. There seem to be quite a few grants that are available, and opportunities for us to grow and support the system. And I think, I know, speaking for myself only, you know, it's easy to miss things when you're buried deep in your day-to-day work. So one of the things we want to do is help create opportunity for us to share those resources and apply as a team. Can you jump in? I feel a little...
No, you're doing great. Yeah, and so I think, you know, Britt and I, as soon as the RFSI got released, I was like, okay, Britt, let's, you know, we'll definitely need a warehouse space in the Treasure Valley. Like I said, we have to start somewhere. Of course, we want to do a grassroots effort across the state. However, it's you know, for the $3 million grant, you need 500,000 as a match, which as a nonprofit, you know, in the early phases of our operations, we just don't have a $500,000 sitting around. So the other thought process is like, how can we kind of brainstorm? So it might not be RFSI for Fair Idaho and City of Good, but City of Good and Idaho Botanical Gardens are probably more ready than and have the resources available for that match. And so you know, we know that eventually we will need warehouse space here in Boise with a loading dock and easy access for all the producers and drivers and the warehouse staff. But where we want to just sort of open the conversation now that the RFSI is out, I'm going to put the link to that grant. I think I sent it in the email, but I will put the link as well so people can reference that if they want to also apply. But just starting to, I think coming together is where we sort of get the ideas or figure out routes for going forward. So.
And thank you. I think I'll add just two more things, Katie, is I think before we knew the numbers for the RFSI, we were talking about like 10 million. And I think I want to be really honest and say this grant is not as big as it should be to make the transformational change that I think it could. Having said that, it's an awesome first step. And in partnership with the Idaho Botanical Garden and the Farmers Market, I think we do have the match for it. So as we move forward with that application, it's essential to me that I am a representative and that Amber is a representative for all of you in terms of building a food hub, even if it's small, that is useful to as many people as possible.
Sorry, I was trying to get that link. So I'm going to put the link in the chat, and then I wanted to just have an informal conversation and start discussing ideas. And so I'm going to just open it up for questions. If you want to raise your hand, we would love it if you want to put something in the chat. You know, I think there is a question in there, and Alex, I am not quite sure. Britt, do you know? I don't know.
Yeah, it does not. It doesn't really address any of that, Alex. That's not one of the priorities of this grant.
Yeah. Thanks for asking the question, though. All right. Does anybody out there? Dave, you always have good ideas. No? Okay. Colette?
I have to unmute. So I was wondering, in terms of the RSFI, is 3 million the max because that's how much ISDA has, or is so within that, what are your thoughts about the request?
So the amount that Idaho has is just over 6 million in total. The max you can apply for is 3 million. Okay. And then you can also, as an individual or an organization, apply for both the equipment and the infrastructure grant, but you will not get both. And I think I am going into a conversation with the team for the Botanical Garden site tomorrow, and I think there is matching money, so that team will go for the full 3 million. That's a great question. The question is if the funding goes for the food hub at the Botanical Garden, or could there be another location? There could certainly be another location. I know that City of Good will be a part of applying for the food hub that's going to happen out in East Boise. There could certainly be another location. There could also be, depending on, so one of the limitations that has Katie and I a little bit hung up on this grant is that you have to have matching funds. And you can't purchase land. So we can't buy a building somewhere else. So part of the benefit of the East Boise thing is that building exists. We also do have the Shrine downtown Boise, and we could invest in infrastructure there that would make it easier for that to be part of a functioning food hub. Potentially, food producers and farmers could be bringing product through there, and that could be a downtown central site if we wanted to invest there. But we will definitely apply for the food hub at the Botanical Garden. That was a roundabout answer.
Oh, it was great. Andy, I don't know if you're in a position to talk, but do you mind to speak a little bit about Idaho Harvest Supply and what you've been doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just launched last July officially, and it's just myself, and we have a refrigerated, essentially a converted van that we've been using. We're primarily just delivery based, trying to help small producers get their products to market. We just operate based on a delivery fee, so we're not brokering or buying and reselling any product. We're just simply facilitating the delivery with the existing connections that the producers have. So we're Treasure Valley based. I'm here in Boise, but we've also been going as far as Twin Falls, McCall, and Sun Valley. Not so much in the wintertime. We've been a little slow, obviously, with the seasonality, but intend for that to pick up again here soon. So just kind of been traveling around those areas, trying to introduce ourselves to small producers, understand where they are selling their products to currently, and trying to facilitate that delivery for them. If some of them are self-distributing, most of them are self-distributing, but as Katie mentioned at the beginning of this, the whole point for us was to allow them to spend more time on their farms and do what they do and less time driving around. So we have taken on that role for those guys and have been driving around the state trying to make connections.
Thanks, Andy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Couple questions. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just saying my question with the location of the botanical gardens, just because we're back and forth, and we operate mostly out of Boise cold storage has been where a lot of our producers hold their product, and it's just been, for us, if we have to, we absolutely will go. It's all same. We operate same day. So I've been driving to the producer's location, picking up bright and early, getting a list of their drop-off locations, and then spending the day essentially dropping off all of their products to their customers. A handful of them are lucky enough to have pallet space at Boise Cold. And when that happens, I mean, my day goes by 10 times faster. And it's just way more efficient for everybody. I've also been helping facilitate, getting meat from their processing facility to Boise Cold as well, and just helping their storage needs there, which has been great. So always just every minute counts, I guess at the end of the day when we're driving around and trying to maximize our loads and get as much product out there. So location is obviously really important, and Boise Cold's nice because it's just right by the freeway there. So not that Botanical Gardens is that much more farther out of the way, but all going into consideration.
Totally. And I think it's worth saying, if I haven't already, that I think I said it, but that this is, right now we have this grant opportunity, so we're focused on that. The IBG project is in motion. But again, that's just sort of the beginning phase of what we imagine being a much larger food hub. So my question for you is, if you had a dream location for a warehouse space, where would that dream location be? And if you guys want to write it in the chat or talk about it, that would be great. But that would be really helpful for us to know in the coming years. For now, we've got the East Boise and the Shrine location, which is on 12th and Idaho, with a free parking lot right next to us, which is handy. But I would love to know what the dream location would be in the future. We consider this It's going to be a network. I mean, it includes obviously Global Gardens and the Shrine space right now. And as we grow, we want more. I'm going to answer a couple questions. Will the kitchen space be available for entrepreneurs to rent? That is part of the vision, yes. We haven't created a program schedule, but that is part of the plan. The Shrine is pretty, the schedule is pretty crazy. So we don't imagine that for now being available to rent, but the East Boise space will be. And I believe we qualify for the 25% match because we are a nonprofit, but I'm not 100% sure of that, but I believe we qualify for the 25%, which is nice. Oh, Enterprise Off-Broadway. Hadn't thought of that. Thanks, Melissa.
Yeah, so we're getting some comments in terms of good location, so I appreciate that. What are, I'm curious to hear, I know we talked about basically some of the issues facing small producers in terms of getting their items to market. Does anyone feel comfortable kind of raising their hand and speaking to that? What would be most beneficial if we're starting small, but could still be of help to producers? All right. Ben just said I would offer that the dream location is somewhat dependent on the ultimate goal that a food hub would be aiming to address. Is that a goal set or is it still evolving?
Ben Brock with all the good questions. The food hub out at IBG and the food hub at Shrine right now is growing out of City of Goods vision to make it possible for every Boisean to access local nutritious food. So that right now is the core of the mission of that space. But is the bigger mission set? No. I think in general terms, our mission is to support a sustainable food system that serves every Boise resident. So that's the big picture goal of it. And that's part of the reason I wanted to start the conversation with you all, is that we come at it from the really strong perspective of serving our community who's experiencing food insecurity, but we want to ensure that we're doing that with a strong voice from our food producers, and that's not like an afterthought, but a central part of the plan. So we have a big picture vision, but we definitely, with your partnership, need to refine what the mission is. Oh, Dave Crick, that's a great idea. A weekly newsletter highlighting what is available. That's a great idea. Thank you. Right now we're targeting Boise because that is what we have the funding for, but the hope is that within the next 3 years, it's the greater Treasure Valley, and then 5 years beyond.
Yeah, and I think in terms of a food hub, really just, it could be, I think, as out near Eagle, as long as it has easy access to a lot of the producers in the state. So just thinking through, like, where will you distribute? Where are the majority of your producers coming from? And just trying to figure that out. And then, like I told Britt, with Idaho's bounties, just making sure you have a loading dock and the proper equipment and storage and refrigeration and all that, that the space is large enough to be able to serve enough producers. So,
Dave Crick, did you raise your hand?
You're muted.
I did raise my hand. I was just going to share, I think it's helpful for context, working and some of this was already said, but with the Botanical Garden being the future home of the Boise Farmers Market, we also run a drive-through market. And one of the challenges with the drive-through is being able to imagine drive-through is just a distribution system. So people pre-order and they come and get their goods on Saturday because that's when the farmers show up to deliver. But if we could actually have that hub there, which is what's being built, right? Now farmers can drop off there any time of the week And we can even store stuff there. So like if you're a meat vendor, for example, you might be able to keep some level of inventory there. And that allows us to reimagine our distribution system from that site. So not only can we have a drive-through on a day of a market, we can do a drive-through on an alternate day, but we can also distribute from that at our leisure based on what the schedule looks like. We've already got through the market a mobile market, which has, I think last year it had close to 20 stops. And
last year it had 16 stops. In 2024, it will have 27.
There you go. And those stops are retail stops or mini pop-up markets, if you will. And it partners with City of Good, who then also distributes food to those points like senior centers and pantries. Being able to aggregate that in one location is really important. To me, the beauty of a second location, if you were to think about, a second location, which is a warehouse, it's somewhere that's easy for the bulk of farmers to access, because the botanical garden isn't necessarily the easiest location to access. So whether it's in Nampa or somewhere else in the Treasure Valley along the I-84 corridor somewhere that's easy to get to, then all of a sudden now we can connect those and be able to have a point where people drop, but also then we pull to the market or we pull to the food hub at the botanical garden what is needed out of that particular warehouse. And eventually, it's just a truck trip to another truck that's coming from another food hub in another regional location, like a Moscow or a Ketchum Haley or a Twin Falls or wherever it might be. Now all of a sudden, because we've got that storage capacity and those trucks driving, you can make those connections. I imagine being able to have a drive-through market that's all pre-order for both retail and wholesale, where people are ordering stuff not just from farms in the Treasure Valley, but from farms and food producers up in the Moscow area and over in the Magic Valley, because we've got the transportation system that hooks it all together.
Yeah, I like that long-term idea for sure. Go ahead, Britt.
Andy is asking if the site will be only available to farmers market vendors, and the answer is no. I think it will be easiest for farmers market vendors because they will be there and the site. So I should have said this in the beginning. Idaho Botanical Garden is in the process of a whole new vision for the garden. They're building out a lot of gardens and a very large building space. And it's a 21,000 square foot space that will be the home of the farmers market. It's an indoor-outdoor space that they will have a home, so they don't have to every year scramble to find a location. There'll be lots of free parking. Within that 21,000 square feet is our 2,000 square foot food hub. And so the farmers there it's kind of one-stop shopping for them, but it is not just the hub part is not just for market vendors. Sorry, Katie, I interrupted.
The food hub.
City of Good will manage the food hub. Okay. And we're, again, the construction hasn't started yet, and construction never is as linear as people dream. So we're a ways off, and yet the vision with the way that we received funding through the ARPA funding is that we are starting the programming for a food hub now. So we're beginning to build the systems, purchase the equipment, create the relationships, and start the programs. We're buying an electric delivery van. We're rehabbing an old refrigerated truck from Jeannie Burns. We're starting the process now so that when the building is built, we are already ready to roll. And so we are in the process also of hiring staff to run those programs, and eventually there will be a full-time food hub manager out there at the IBG site.
Oh,
yes, we will be outgrowing in year one. You are right, Melissa. I know. That's why we're talking. That's why we're scrambling to get all the money we can.
Yeah, I mean, I think in an ideal world, we would help support um, the space out at the botanical gardens, and then really just ideally look for a warehouse space ASAP, and then start thinking outside of the Treasure Valley. How can we connect the rest of the state?
And one way to think about the East Boise space is, I mean, I'll be completely honest. I understand there's a lot of resistance that it's half an hour, more than a half an hour from my house. Like, it's not easy. But what we're trying to do is, because the building process is already funded, that saves a lot of money for us, and it will allow us to create proof of concept, so that when we apply for further funding, we can say this is what works, and on day one we've already outgrown it. And so while it is not perfect, it is the beginning of a process that I think could be really, really helpful for all of us. I have a question, and we've talked about a little bit about site and about distribution. I'm curious if there's equipment that you would want to see that would be helpful to your business or to the growth of your business. What are the things that Boise needs in order to process or distribute food in a way that's helpful to you and your business? Do we need a $34,000 steam kettle, Dave Crick?
Those are good questions. I think that, first of all, we can probably buy a used one when we get down to it, and get a much better deal on that. But it's all about processing and value added. So for farmers, how much demand is there really? We've got the incubator out in Caldwell, the University of Idaho incubator, which has some of that capability already. So we know that from the farmers market, there's a desire to have some of that from their vendors. But the ability to make stocks or soups or whatever it might be out of fresh produce, is there demand for it? We think there is, but we haven't had real test of that yet.
One issue that I ran into is also just having the staff, because you can rent a kitchen, but then experienced people to actually help you pack something like the mustard that I was making. That was hard. I had the offer of a kitchen, but then nobody who had any kind of actual like large production scale experience. So when I was like leasing the kitchen from Dilly's, it was great because I could also lease her staff. But then she expanded. I wasn't able to be in that kitchen space anymore. And Caldwell is great, but then it's a bring your own help kind of situation. And that is a lot, especially like when I'm brand new to production too. So then me being the one in charge is very intimidating. And when all of a sudden you're using like a double boiler that your entire body can fit into, and it's your first time running it, and then with like a bunch of people running it for the first time too, it just became very unfeasible to continue that, especially because as a producer, I'm still doing a lot of other things. And so to just add that one like really big task is then pretty intimidating and not very manageable. So just like that experienced kitchen staff that can really be there and work with you through like the whole process would be super helpful.
Thanks, Jess.
So thinking about that, I just put a link into the chat. So Jan Tusick with Mission Mountain Food Enterprise Center, they developed a food processing center, and then they realized that having the business support technical assistance was pretty crucial for that, and then ran into that piece about workforce and for that processing. And I believe the way that they addressed it was that they now have a trained workforce that can run all of the equipment, and then producers can come in and hire that workforce, because so many small entrepreneurs can't afford to pay people enough hours to have them as staff. So another model to check out.
Thank you. That's super helpful.
Well, does anyone have any thoughts or questions? Anything they'd like to add?
Freeze dryers on the list. Andy, I might follow up with you to find out what the dream freeze dryer looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been looking into it myself pretty heavily.
Well, you don't like that one that I spec'd out for it?
I think it's great, Dave. I'm just cheap. I don't want to spend more than I have to. This is between you and me, everyone. We price the highest possible equipment we could find in our grant so that we have a lot to work with and we have a little bit of wiggle room, but and we got approved. But anyway.
Thanks, Gina, for that. To check that out.
Yeah, I think these other connections are really good, because anybody that's doing this kind of work has probably worked through the equipment questions. And those are good questions around, like, if you're going to build a small food hub, what tends to be the equipment that gets the most use, and who are the manufacturers, what types of equipment. So like, take something like a freeze dryer. When I did the research on it, it's pretty limited. You go from, basically what is a garage style unit to $1 million freeze dryer. And there doesn't seem to be a huge market in between. But a lot of times what I find is that gap is out there. It's just not well advertised. And so if you find other places that are doing what you're doing, they might have some of that equipment, and they might say, oh God, don't buy that one because it's a piece of crap. We learned from this. What you want is this other model. Or we learned that, yeah, everybody thinks they want a freeze dryer, but they never use it.
Yes, Alex, I would like to discuss all of that with you as we move forward. Yes, please.
It's great suggestions.
Well, I'm going to put my email phone number in here. If you come up with ideas later or thoughts or concerns or questions, I'm happy to talk with you. This is obviously a project that's got a lot of pieces and is in motion. But if you have things you want to say or learn, I'm around, and I really, really appreciate your help.
I do have one more question. So I know that there's the traditional buyers of all of this local food, mostly just Dave. But who else is there any outreach then with this, or is it kind of like a build it and they will come? One thing that I've run into with just selling food locally is it's great until your chef leaves, and then the chef who was your connection, you just lost an entire restaurant's worth of sales.
So right now, City of Good is the major market that we're working with as we grow and understand. So let me back that. That was a really oversimplified answer. City of Good provides produce, like I said, 40,000 pounds last year. We have a goal of distributing 85,000 pounds next summer. We purchase it at a surplus price, and it all goes to pantries throughout the city. We know the need is there. We know that there is more need than we're currently meeting. And so that is one of the markets that we already have the resources to fill. We also produce meals, and that program also is growing. I'm looking at my benchmarks right now so I can tell you what the numbers are. ready-to-eat meals. We will distribute 75,000 meals next year that we will purchase 100% local product to produce. So that is the market that we're working with right now. And right now we imagine our mini hub at the Shrine will be able to manage that. And as we get closer to growing the interim hub and IBG and then the mega hub, that marketing and outreach to buyers will be a part of that process. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Sometimes it's just helpful to like remind yourself about like the context that this is happening in versus then like a bigger picture and like forgetting that, you know, City of Good needs its own food hub because of how much like produce you guys are looking through. So yes, thank you very much.
And I will send you all through Katie information about what this grant application was and what the promises are just within that. That's only part of the vision, but if that's helpful to you to understand what we're working on, I will share that with all of you.
Perfect. Well, if there's any last questions, now's the time before we hop off. I want to thank everybody for being here today as we have this conversation, and it's ever evolving, but it sounds like we're moving in the right direction. We're finally having these deeper conversations that are leading to action. So it feels beneficial. Also really grateful for folks like Andy with Idaho Harvest Supply that are doing the work that we need folks to do by delivering products for small producers. It's really critical for them, and we're grateful that Andy got that truck and is driving around the state.
Yeah. Thanks, Katie.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody. We'll put this on our YouTube channel and maybe more conversations going forward as things progress. And Britt, do you have any closing words?
Just thank you all so much for all that you're doing, and Katie for organizing this. This is just the beginning of a really exciting conversation, and I'm so thankful for what you're doing, Katie.
Thank you. All right. Well, everybody have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Take care.